Do you know what really sucks? Is sitting down to edit your project and realizing that you have gaps in your coverage or shots missing. You need to have a really good, specific, and detailed shot list. Head over to filmmakersecrets.com/shot list, SHOTLIST, to get a killer shot list template along with some training where I show you step by step exactly how to use it. Producing winning films by telling better stories. Basically, I want you to be able to grab your audience by the throat and pull them into your film. Filmmakers have the power to evoke emotion, inspire thought, and drive universal change in this world. Right now, a real seismic shift is happening in the film industry. This is your best chance to join a new filmmaking movement. You have been called to create an everlasting impact with your unmatched, deep desire to tell authentic stories. So how does a filmmaker thrive in an environment that is almost intentionally designed to bring you down? That is the question, and this podcast reveals the answer. What's happening, filmmakers? It's George VK. Welcome to Filmmaker Secrets podcast. I'm going live on Facebook as well. And today I wanted to talk about the 3 secrets to producing winning films by telling better stories. Now, these may not seem like so much of a secret at first, but it is definitely something that a lot of filmmakers tend to put on the back burner and focus on the things that are not so important in the whole filmmaking process, ending up shooting themselves in the foot simply by not prioritizing the right things when it comes to film production. So before I get into the 3 secrets, I just wanted to give you a quick backstory on how this all kind of came about. 12 or so years ago, I was just starting my first day of film school over at CU Denver here in beautiful Colorado. And obviously being an immigrant from Kazakhstan, coming into the US and going into film school, like learning how to actually make movies was just so foreign to me. And it was a very surreal experience. I remember my first day, I had intro to film production, a class with my professor, Nathan Thompson, who I admire a lot because of the way that his mind works and the way that he teaches his students. He's always very intentional and very purposeful with his lessons and his teachings that he gives to his students. He really makes sure that every student is kind of keeping up and not falling behind with the creativity as well as the sort of logistical aspects of filmmaking. And there was this one moment that I want to tell you about where he played a scene from the movie Silence of the Lambs for us. And it was one of the more earlier scenes where a lot of the exposition is happening, right? We're getting to know the character, Jodie Foster's character, and as she is about to have her first meeting with Hannibal Lecter. And just that lead up to that meeting was so intentional in every way. It was in the cinematography, in the lighting, in the performance of the actors, in the intentionality of the art direction that was happening in the environment that these characters were in the camera movement. Every aspect was serving the story. And that is something that I talk about a lot, right? Stories king, stories queen. It is the thing that you need to absolutely pay the utmost attention to and give the most priority to, because everything else funnels from your story. The story is the most important thing. You can learn the cinematic image later. You can figure out lighting, but the most important thing that you have to start with is a really good story. And so in this scene, the character basically goes through the precinct where Hannibal Lecter is held down in the basement. But throughout all of these shots, she is taken on this sort of journey through all these visual metaphors of what she's about to encounter by way of lighting and the art direction and the choices of angles from the camera. Everything had some sort of visual element of bars in it, right? There were bars everywhere that the camera was shooting through, some bars into where the Jodie Foster's character was starting in this location. And as she made her way down to the basement, the lighting and the performance really rose that tension. It kind of kept you on the edge of your seat because of what was about to happen, right? It was the first time they were going to meet, and everything visually speaking and auditorially was raising that tension by way of showing bars, that sort of repeated element of the storytelling aspect of that particular scene. And as he went shot by shot by shot, really doing a very detailed analysis of the choices from the filmmakers, it kind of sparked this complete change in the way that I saw films from that moment on. You know, it didn't necessarily ruin it for me just because I was now very analytical anytime I watch a film. I'm sure a lot of you have had that moment where you sort of shifted the way of thinking of how you watch movies. You know, it's no longer just to be entertained or to enjoy a film, because now you're able to be entertained and enjoy the film while you're watching it, but you're also looking at it through that lens of a filmmaker that really puts story first. It's your priority, and you're figuring out what are the intentions of the filmmaker in every scene, and what does that do to serve the story. Okay, that's part of being a filmmaker, is being hyper aware of those aspects. So from that moment on, I was hooked, right? I was paying attention to the storytelling aspects of every film I watched, and I saw how all the different filmmakers were doing it in order to try and emulate those aspects in my own projects. So that's sort of what got me so hooked on the idea of storytelling being so important in your filmmaking. So the very first secret that I want to share with you is how to awaken the storytelling beast inside and strategically craft really compelling stories. Whatever kind of project you're working on, whether it's a commercial or a narrative piece, long form, short form, or even a documentary, storytelling is present within every aspect of the filmmaking world. It is something that you need to grasp wholeheartedly to be able to really compel your audience to pay attention, right? This is an attention economy, and with, you know, every decade, the attention span of human beings keeps getting compressed and compressed. It's almost like we're living in this 3-second society, right? If you don't grab the attention of your viewer within the first 3 seconds of your video, of your film, of your story, then you haven't done your job in this day and age, unfortunately. But, you know, when we're talking about this idea of crafting a beautiful story that compels your audience to, you know, be emotionally charged or intellectually charged or both, in order to, you know, have some sort of impact in their lives, to take action, to change their world in some way, to improve their thinking about the world. We really want to consider how we are learning filmmaking and the whole filmmaking process. Because we can go on YouTube and we can watch video after video of all the different perspectives from all kinds of filmmakers. You know, these days, anybody can pick up a phone, record a quick YouTube video, and claim it as fact. But you have to be careful about the types of videos that you watch and really do your due diligence about the filmmakers that you are following. Because oftentimes there is so much information out there, it's so easy to get overwhelmed and even become more confused the more videos that you watch. So that's where we have to be really intentional. When you're learning filmmaking, in whatever stage that you are at in your filmmaking career, you have to be intentional about the strategies that you are learning, right? Because YouTube is all about tactics. It's how to do a certain visual effect, how to do blood spurts or muzzle flashes coming from guns, or, you know, how to use a particular piece of equipment. It's all tactical, but what it lacks is the actual strategy. The strategies that go into producing a winning film is much different than the tactics that you will learn simply by doing it. So as soon as you understand the strategy, then you can implement the tactics that you learn within your film production. It's very much, you know, it's kind of like when a coach, if a coach was to tell you, you know, you're going to go here and then this person will go here to block the ball and then the pass will be blocked here. if you just go ahead and tell the tactics to your team players, they're going to be confused as to the actual reasoning behind those tactics. But if you explain the strategy, you're going to go from here to here because of the, I'm not a sports guy, but the metaphor works where you're explaining the reasoning behind those tactics. Then the tactics become second nature, and it just starts to make sense because you've explained the strategy. So that's my goal, is to really explain the strategy behind all the tactics that you will learn from just being in my world and listening to my podcast and watching the videos that I put out, just being involved in the whole training. And if I'm not the person to be teaching you, that's totally okay too. Go find a filmmaker that is putting out courses or training or YouTube videos that you like, that you enjoy, and watch their stuff and take away from it what you will. I'm not here to tell you that you need to be watching my stuff. If you can get value from someone else, please go do that, because I would rather you actually improve your filmmaking if I'm not the right person. My goal is for you to succeed, and if it's not with me, then that's fine. That's totally okay. I just simply want to put forth the information, and if you receive it, great. If not, well, your loss, right? So that's the idea behind this very first secret, is you have to learn the strategies. I think a lot of filmmaking courses and trainings out there only focus on the tactics, right? How to light a specific lighting setup, or how to set up your camera to the right settings in order to get that quote unquote cinematic image, or how to edit within Premiere when you're doing like J cuts or L cuts. It's all tactical. But until you understand the strategy behind those storytelling aspects and those storytelling elements, you will be left in the dark and likely more confused than when you started. So I hope that was clear enough, and I hope that you buy into this idea of learning the strategy first before you learn the tactics, so that you really understand the reasoning behind each step in the film production process. Now, the second secret that I want to share with you has to do with producing winning films by telling better stories. Basically, I want you to be able to grab your audience by the throat and pull them into your film, right? And how many of you consider yourself a writer? And how many of you don't consider yourself a writer? Now, personally speaking, I will be completely upfront and frank with you. I don't consider myself this seasoned professional writer, but I do enjoy script writing, screenwriting, and just writing in general, because it's a way for me to express myself, even if it's something that never makes it to the public and nobody ever sees it. It's a way for me to get the ideas that are in my head organized into a piece of paper or on the screen, right? So you don't have to necessarily be a writer in order to be a storyteller. We are all storytellers. It's something that is so innate in our human nature, telling stories from our decades past, from our ancestors, telling stories of what happened to us during the day. The more you tell your stories, the better you'll become, because you will understand the nuances of storytelling. So that's something that I want to get across, so that you really understand and accept that fact that you do not have to be a professional writer or even consider yourself a writer at all in order to be a storyteller and a really effective filmmaker. The three things that you need to know about storytelling are character, desire, and conflict. That's it. It's super simple. Those three elements are exactly what's going to grab your audience by the throat and pull them into your film. So let's just break those down, okay? Character. What is it to do with character? Well, that's basically, this is our industry, right? This is our work. We're dealing with human beings. We're capturing people in their natural habitat, in their sort of, human condition. And that's really what filmmaking is. It's the study of the human condition. What is it about us humans that makes us react a certain way or, do certain things? It's a study of those behaviors that we elicit as human beings. And when you capture that on film, there's something beautiful and magical that happens, to where if you actually pull your audience into your film, then there's something relatable. There's something that they can connect to. They can feel heard and seen, especially if you are representing a particular demographic of people, right? If you're being very intentional with who your dream audience is. So, the character is what is going to create the environment, the tone of your story. So you have to make sure that your character is fully fleshed out. You have to know your character better, perhaps, than you know yourself. It's something that I believe every story needs to start with. Oftentimes, I think the mistake filmmakers make is simply by starting with the situation, right? The what of their film. It's either a post-apocalyptic film where there was some sort of event, and then this happens, and the character falls flat because it wasn't the priority. If you start with your character and who they are, where they're coming from, what are their past experiences, then you're going to have a much more dynamic and a much more dynamic story that is really filled with depth and a degree of a three-dimensionality that really pulls your audience into your film simply because your character is interesting, right? And how do you make a character interesting? Well, you have to just answer as many questions about that character as possible. Imagine that you're conducting an interview with your character about their life, about what they like, what they don't like, what clubs are they a part of? Well, where do they like to go on the weekend? Who are their friends? What are their pet peeves? All of those things. Come up with as many questions as you can in order to do a really deep analysis into your character's personality. Once you have that, we move on to their desire. What does your character want? What are they striving towards? What do they want to retrieve? This is the desire is what's going to actually drive the action of your story forward. If your character doesn't necessarily want anything out of life or out of the situation they're in, there's nothing to propel them to make a change, to grow, to become a better person, whatever that end goal is. The desire of your character is what pushes the story forward. So that's the second thing. We have our character, we have what they want, what they're striving towards. And lastly, we need obstacles to stand in their way, right? And that's the conflict. What is it that's pushing back on that desire? What is stopping your character or attempting to stop your character from achieving what they want? And it's that conflict and that desire and the push and pull of these two elements that really creates an interest in your story and definitely pulls the audience in to make it a very compelling film or commercial or documentary. Whenever you're developing your story, those are the three things you got to think of: character, desire, and conflict. Okay? So that's secret number 2 of grabbing your audience by the throat and pulling them into your film. Now, the final secret is all about the thing that I think we are all familiar with, which I like to call tool trapping. This is a concept I originally learned from my good friend Adam Blair, and he talks about tool trapping in the way that whenever you are faced with a task or some sort of craft, for example, let's say creating a film, you in your mind automatically start to come up with excuses and stories of why you can't actually accomplish what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And oftentimes it's all to do with the gear, right? You see videos on Instagram and on Facebook about people with these expensive cameras and all these crazy big rigs that they're using, and it's all for show, right? We don't need to be comparing ourselves with those people, because at the end of the day, every one of those filmmakers started somewhere, right? They started with some sort of camera, any camera that they have in their pocket. Personally speaking, I had a little toy camera that couldn't even take pictures when I was very, very young that my mom gifted me. You'd press the shutter button and it would say smile. And I loved that thing. Even though it didn't capture any photos, I walked around with that big yellow toy camera everywhere I went. And then eventually, when I was able to actually start making money, I figured out how to create little animated banners for people's websites. When I started learning Macromedia Flash back before it was Adobe, And that's how I made my first few dollars, just by creating these animated banners. I was able to purchase my first little Canon point and shoot camera. And I walked around with that everywhere I went and took photos, as many as I could, learning and practicing this craft. Then eventually I upgraded when I was able to make some more money from that. And it was this slow progression into building up to what now is, I have access to some bigger cameras. I have the ability to rent cameras for whatever project that I want. I have the ability to buy the cameras that I have because of that slow progression. As I was learning, I was upgrading my gear. So you don't need to start with an expensive $50,000 red camera rig setup, or you don't need to buy that super expensive light that's going to cost as much as a car, because you need to start somewhere, and everybody started somewhere. So don't fall into the trap of tool trapping yourself into, making the excuse that I don't have that cinema camera to shoot the project. You do, okay? You have a camera in your pocket. These are amazing. The smartphones these days can capture 4K. The image quality is decent. It works for, basic storytelling. Obviously, I'm not negating the value of having a real cinematic or cinema camera for your cinematic imagery, but you can always create. So without that, right? You don't need to be tool trapping yourself. There are plenty of projects that have been shot on iPhones that focus on the story and focus on the visual storytelling intentionality behind those. So secret number 3 is to avoid tool trapping, because that is something that will definitely set you back if you are not creating solely for the reason of telling yourself this false belief that you need all this expensive camera gear. I've shot plenty of film projects on a simple DSLR simply because I understand that the cinematic image doesn't come from the camera necessarily. That's when you sort of get into upgrading your profession, your sort of professional outlook on the filmmaking business, when you're able to rent those more expensive cameras or even buy those more expensive cameras. But especially when you're starting out, you got to focus on learning the storytelling aspect of filmmaking, first of all, and then getting into all the nitty gritty with how to actually create a cinematic image. And it all starts with lighting, right? The importance of lighting in cinematography is key. If you don't have that knowledge base of how to create a beautifully lit scene without necessarily having a red camera, then that's going to be the bottleneck. You will always be stuck in that eternal loop of tool trapping yourself. So that is the biggest thing that I want to get across, is that lighting over cinematic or cinema cameras, just the fact that you are not considering yourself a writer, you are still a storyteller, and finally learning the strategies behind all of the techniques of the filmmaking world over the tactics. Strategy first, story first, lighting first. So those are the 3 secrets that I wanted to share with you today. I hope that was helpful. I hope you found value in that. And if you would allow me, I would love to offer you something that is going to absolutely help you get over all of these hurdles that we just discussed, and just really take full control of your filmmaking power, your storytelling abilities, and your overall creative craft of filmmaking. And that is the Filmmaker Secrets Academy. So if you would allow me, I'll just spend the next couple of minutes quickly talking about what it is, why it exists, and what is it going to help you with in your filmmaking pursuits. So Filmmaker Secrets Academy is the new course that I'm pre-selling on my website. You can get it at filmmakersecrets.com/FSA. FSA stands for Filmmaker Secrets Academy. So filmmakersecrets.com/FSA. And in there, you will see a page that basically details everything that I'm about to talk about. But the basic concept is that it is the filmmaking course, the mothership of filmmaking courses, because I don't just cover the tactics of the cinematic image, the storytelling aspects that are so important in every stage, at every stage of your filmmaking career or your filmmaking process. You know, as you're shooting your film, as you're prepping for your film, as you are doing the post-production for your film project, every time you are always serving the story. Every element always comes back to the story and serving that story. So it's not just the tactics that I'm going to teach you, it's the actual strategy, the reasoning behind what we do and why we do it. I'm going to cover how to create a cinematic image, first of all, by lighting, right? Finding out what it is about lighting that makes a cinematic image, but then also getting into the nitty-gritty of the cinematic composition and the use of camera and the camera movement and the intentionality behind it. We're going to cover audio and the proper way to capture really good audio, because it is as important, if not more important, than the image. You know, it'll most likely be much easier for you to watch a film that perhaps doesn't have the best image but has good audio versus a film that has terrible audio but a beautiful cinematic image. Because the eye is much more forgiving than the ears. For some reason, there's something about the audible aspect of us consuming content and films that has to be crisp and clear and engaging. Also, within audio, as we speak about post-production, what is the sound design that's going to really propel your project forward and immerse your audience within your story that much more? We're going to cover art direction with when it comes to the storytelling of your film as it pertains to the environment that your characters are living in. We're going to cover the business aspects of filmmaking and how to actually run a profitable film production company. And we're going to cover my sort of perfect spec commercial spot, basically getting the work that you are putting forth for others to see, to be able to be so curated and so focused so that you are actually getting noticed by the brands or the production companies that you are looking to get the attention of. And we're going to basically tie all of those different elements, all pointing back to story. That is going to be the common theme, because that is basically what is going to propel your films forward, help you produce winning films and tell better stories when you focus on the story. So there's going to be 6 modules, 6 weeks of intense learning and information, everything in the past 12 years, the culmination of my filmmaking career in all different aspects of filmmaking to be basically compiled into this mothership of filmmaking courses. And it is launching on July 15th. Up until that date, July 15th, 2021, I am pre-selling this course for an insane discount. So you can check it out once again at filmmakersecrets.com/FSA. Once we actually launch the course, then the price will jump up to the actual full price. So if you want to get in early, be one of the founding members of Filmmaker Secrets Academy, you can get in for a super, super insane discount. It's basically like 51% off at the moment. So the way to get an actual, even a bigger discount is by checking out Storytelling Secrets. You've heard me talk about that workshop before. Storytelling Secrets, which is going to reveal the things that you need to infuse into your story and how to make your audience actually care and rave about your film. Once you go through that, you will see a page for the Pre-Production Secrets Challenge. It's a 21-day challenge that just wrapped today, teaching you all the step-by-step things that you need to do in order to successfully prepare for your film shoot. So we got our story, we've written our script, we've prepped for it properly with all the necessary elements to launch our film shoot in 3 weeks, 21 days. And then the next page will actually be the Filmmaker Secrets Academy pre-sale page that is discounted even more. So if you want to check that out, go to filmmakersecrets.com filmmakers.com/story. But if you want a shortcut over to the Academy, once again, it's filmmakersecrets.com/FSA. All right. That's all I got to share with you today. I'm losing my voice because I've been speaking for a little while now. But thank you so much for watching, Filmmakers. Here's to your next story. I wish you all the best. Check out the link down below in the description. I'll throw it in the comments as well. I appreciate you. I hear you. I see you. Best of luck with everything. If you like that, then you are going to love my Cine Racing Challenge. This is a 7-day filmmaking competition where your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to write, shoot, and edit a short 60-second film in just 7 days for your one chance to win with over $10,000 in prizes. So head over to cineracing.com. That's cineracing.com to get registered. Spots are filling up fast and the timer is ticking before the next Cine Racing Challenge launches. So be sure to head over to cineracing.com right now to get registered. I'll see you over there.